Hmm. So I'm on, but I don't have video on this so far.
Okay.
Oh, I'm muted.
Andrew, we are live. You may start the meeting whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm officially starting the safety meeting at 6:03 p.m. on July 13th, 2020. We are here to discuss potential changes to our our village ordinances 505.01. It's dogs and other animals running at large. We're specifically talking about aggressive or violent animals, not the instance where your dog gets out and just wanders over to the neighbors or may find himself in downtown every once in a while. So we have been asked because there have been some recent incidents with some of our canine friends in the village that have led to harm to other animals, people's pets in the village. So we've been asked to take a look at this code and make some suggestions on where we might want to proceed to help the police and protect our canine friends. So that's where I'm going to start. Does anybody? I guess I'd like to start out with the chief of police and let her give maybe a little background on what happened recently, or and what she would feel would be beneficial.
Okay, so we've had, and I mean, we've had various instances with dogs over the years, and I would start by saying I don't think that we necessarily have a pervasive dog problem in our village, but what we do have is our ordinances are not set up at the current time to deal with certain situations, right? So we've encountered recently some situations where we have repeat offender dogs that aren't just running loose in the village, they're actually attacking other dogs and causing harm to them. And the way our ordinances are currently set up, number one, our dog at large ordinance needs to be updated to match the Ohio Revised Code, right? So there's nothing in our ordinance language really that gets into the dangerous and vicious dog category. Now, some of this is, before my time in like a policy position, but I do know there's been in the past constitutional issues with certain vicious dog ordinances. And that's not what we're looking to do here. I'm not asking for the village to say, well, you can't own a certain type of dog, or you can't have a certain dog. It's more, number one, bringing us in line with the Ohio Revised Code. And then also giving the police department a little bit more authority to take action when we do have these situations where it's a repeat offender dog. So, we've always had a dog at large ordinance, right? So our current 50501, if your dog leaves your property, technically speaking, you could be charged with having a dog at large. The police officers have a lot of discretion when it comes to that. If the dog is just found wandering and it's the first time it's happened, or even sometimes the second or third time, chances are, we're going to pick up your dog, take it to the station. He gets his mugshot on Facebook, and then the owner comes and picks him up. But that's an important ordinance too, in that when you start running into situations where the same dog is running at large now every day, or 5, 6, 7, 8 times, that is where a lot of times we step in and we'll issue a citation for dog at large, or if it's going on the neighbor's property, causing problems, that sort of thing. But where our ordinances are lacking is when it deals with dogs that attack, dogs that are menacing to other people, that sort of thing. So in talking with Dale Markowitz, the law director, he pointed me in the direction of actually Avon Lake has some pretty significant ordinances that pertain to dogs that have become a nuisance, dangerous, and vicious. Now, there's different classifications in the ORC. I don't know, Mr. Weibel, I copied you on a document. I emailed it to you. It's just my notes that might help you follow along with what I'm saying. But there's different classifications for dogs based on what they're doing, right? So in the state of Ohio, per the ORC, if you look at ORC 955.11, it gets into these different classifications. Right now, for us, that would all be done through the court. There's nothing in our ordinances that gives me as the police chief and or my designee the ability to kind of start that process prior to it going to the court. So that's one thing that I want to look at. But the other thing is a nuisance dog is not considered a nuisance until it's been loose 3 times, right? And what we've seen is if a dog gets out and attacks another dog, it's not even considered dangerous unless the other dog dies.
Mhm.
And that has to happen 3 times before it gets that designation, right? So what we want to do is try to find a way to deal with those situations before it gets to that point, right? So the thing I hear the most is, why do we have to wait until this attacks a child? Or why do we have to wait until somebody's dog dies before we do something? So that's what I'm looking to try to accomplish through our ordinances is, number one, to make sure that our ordinances match what the ORC says, and then potentially where we can, maybe even take it a little step further, that gives us a little more options when it comes to these types of incidents. So let me see. So if you look at our ordinances, they're actually pretty, there's not a lot there when it comes to dogs. We have the 50501, which talks about running at large. The other thing that has come up just in discussions with citizens who've been involved in these attacks is it's only an M2, right? So the first time a dog attacks another dog, it's an M4, and then each subsequent time it's an M2. We could debate whether it matters if we go to M2 or M1 in terms of, that's going to be more a talk about whether the owner, potentially serves time or something of that nature. If that's something that the council wanted to consider, we could consider. I think we would need some input from Mr. Markowitz about that as far as raising those penalties. But it's, it's an option. I'm pulling up the code here just for a second. So we have dogs and other animals running at large. Then we have the annual registration, which is also in the ORC that requires you to register your dog with the county. And then we have nuisance conditions prohibited. This is an interesting one, and I don't think that we should do away with any of the ones we have. They might just need to be updated, right? So this nuisance conditions prohibited talks about a citation for any animal which by habitual biting, barking, yelping, any way that manners or injures or disturbs the quiet of any person or the community, right? So there, we have that available to us as well. And again, this would be a dog that's continuously running loose. But here again, this is an M3, and there's not currently any provision in here for that to increase or decrease. It's just, it's an M3 each time it happens.
Yeah,
but
it drops down right 10, or it drops 10, or it changes to an M2 if it happens again within a 3-year period. So you get a 3-year period and it resets. If I'm understanding that correctly.
on nuisance conditions,
I think so.
where do you see that?
Never mind, I'm wrong. Sorry.
Okay. I mean, so that's true. That's true for declaring a dog a nuisance, right? That's what I'm saying. These dog codes, the ORC and the ordinances can get very confusing and convoluted, especially when you're talking about conviction versus citation. You know, when is it deemed a nuisance dog as opposed to, like, our nuisance conditions prohibited doesn't, that word nuisance is used differently in our ordinance than how it's defined in the ORC. Because this is talking about a nuisance condition, not necessarily a nuisance dog, right? So,
Amber, are there different citation levels for different offenses? So I mean, I could see a nuisance could be like a barky dog, overly barky dog, or your dog getting loose or something like that. That's not actually affecting anybody or anybody's pet physically. But if a dog attacks another dog, or God forbid a person, I'm guessing we're talking about a whole different range of possible consequences. But is there one level of citation? Like if your dog's loose, it costs you $100. If your dog, does something more dramatic, does the citation go up from there? Or is it just one basic level of citation?
so the answer is it depends on what they're cited for. So the dog, and I don't know, and unfortunately I'm at home, so I can't even grab it for you, but if somebody's cited for dog at large, right? So it doesn't attack anybody or anything like that. It is just running loose. The first time is an M3.
Not without seeing a violation of section of second degree in which such animal is found to have bitten
So
another person while at large. So if
Right.
it's another person, it's an M2.
If it's just running at large, it's an M3. If it bites a person, it's an M2. If it bites another animal, it is still an M3
Yeah.
the first time, right? But then if you go down to section F, it says each subsequent violation within 3 years becomes a misdemeanor of the first degree. If a human is bit, it's still only an M2 if it's a animal that's bitten.
Yep.
Okay. The degree of the offense is not necessarily, I mean, depending on how you look at it, the degree of the offense is not necessarily the problem in our case. It's more what I'm looking for is remedy in the immediate aftermath of an attack, right? So the courts have the authority on, how someone is punished, right? The courts set the fine amounts. The courts would decide if there was jail time or probation or whatever might happen. If council wanted to up those penalties, like I said, that would be a discussion for you guys as well as the law director to see, do they have to mirror the Ohio Revised Code or not? I don't know for sure what leeway you guys have to set that. We could ask Mr. Markowitz. But let me get back on track here. So a couple things again that I find lacking. Number one, so that dog at large is missing. If you look at the Ohio Revised Code section 955.22, that's where the Ohio Revised Code talks about a dog running at large. If you compare that code section to our code section that we were just looking at, there's a lot of language missing that goes in to talk about vicious and dangerous dogs. So I would like to see our code have that language in there, whether it be through amending 50501 or adding another subsection. I mean, when I look at the one for Avon Lake, it looks like they have a separate section for nuisance, dangerous, and vicious. And I think Mr. Markowitz said they may rely on 955.22 in lieu of what our 50501 would be.
Yeah,
So-
definitely the Ohio Revised Code definitely does a better job of defining the types of, vicious, dangerous, or nuisance, that ours doesn't really get into the language as
Right.
much.
Right. And so if we cite under our code then our court is using our code to determine sanctions,
Hmm.
right? So we would either have to consider citing under state code instead of our code, or just making our code match the state code, which seems like a reasonable thing to do to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So we currently don't have any language in our ordinances that allows the police department to seize a dog. So, you know, we're kind of, you know, so we have an attack and I have to turn the dog right back over to the person who let it get out in the first place. Right? So I would be interested in seeing, and if you looked at the Avon Lake Code section, 618:19. So they have a provision in their code that gives, and it says, upon a resultant death or serious injury of a domestic animal or human, the police department shall have the authority, but not the duty, in the interest of public safety, to seize the killing or seriously injuring dog and impound it. I would like to see us have that ability. It doesn't, and it says right in there, has the authority but not the duty. In other words, there's discretion written into that. But we need some method when we've identified a dog that's dangerous to its community. We need a method to be able to take that animal and keep it, at least until it goes to court, from being able to get free again in the community, right? So I wouldn't mind seeing that written as an impoundment, but also an and/or requiring that the owner kennel it. Again, it's at their expense, and this language is all written that it's at the expense of the owner. But would require them to house it somewhere other than their property until the case is adjudicated.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the Avon Lake Code, it's pretty clear. I mean, the dog has to aggressively bite a person or another domesticated animal. I mean, it's not like a dog got out and caught a rabbit or a squirrel. This is a whole different,
Correct.
This is attacking somebody's pet, not just any old critter.
Correct. The other language from their ordinances that I really like have to deal with deeming a dog a potential nuisance. So that's not something that I've seen in the Ohio Revised Code. But if you look at, if you guys have it in front of you, if you look at their code 618:21, the police chief and/or designee has the ability to classify a dog as they have a level 1 or a level 2. And what that does is it requires then the owner to take extra steps to ensure that it doesn't get loose. And this, I think, is the gap between that, why do we have to wait 3 times before we can require some sort of extra level of keeping the dog contained? And if you read through that, I mean, I would leave it to council to determine how deeply into that they want to go, because the next section then talks about the control. So once it's deemed a level 1 or level 2, it requires the owner to then take those extra precautions. And one thing that's important, and it does allow for this in their code, is the animal owner obviously has a right to appeal that decision, right? So there is due process built into it, which is important. We have to have that.
Aren't we convicting this is the level, just to point this out, the potential nuisance, aren't we convicting a dog before it's done any real actions? I mean, it can.
This says level 1 classification is established if a dog off the premises of its owner, keeper, or harborer aggressively bites any domestic animal without provocation.
But wouldn't then, I guess I can see that. Okay. I see where they're going with that. I mean, they're trying to make a distinction between, you know, biting and actually, you know, I want to say maiming another domesticated pet. That's kind of the difference in the level, I guess.
Well, and it's also aggressively bites, right? So
Yeah.
if two dogs at the dog park start nipping at each other, to me that doesn't meet this level. But when a dog bites another dog and it has to go in and get stitches or other substantial medical procedures done as a result of that bite, then I think this would come into play.
I would like to I would like to see, personally, I'd like to see language that
Mhm.
kind of clarifies that a little bit, that like, this isn't this, you gotta have, you know, it had to have caused you to take the dog, you know, take your pet to the vet, or cause serious, you know, cause some financial hardship or something that made you have to pay for a vet visit, or true, you know, clarification that this wasn't just like nipping at each other's ears. Because I can see how it could get in the future get abused if it you know, written in this manner.
Don't dog owners have some recourse that doesn't involve you, Amber, and us getting involved in this thing? If your dog gets, you know, its tail bitten off by some other dog or whatever, can't you take action against the other dog owner?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the civil side of it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean,
I
you
guess there's
certainly-
some protection. I know that's probably a rabbit hole, no pun intended, that nobody wants to go down. I'd rather have it be, you know, mitigated locally.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think, Andrew, you were talking earlier about Amber, when you said it was in the Avon Lake Code that your department could identify a dog as potentially being a nuisance or a problem, and that's the part that I think Andrew's asking about, the language. I'd like to see that too. Just how do we determine that a dog is, outside of it biting another dog or doing something like that, how do we determine that the dog's a potential problem? Unless I'm not understanding that code.
Well, so if you read fully into the code section that they have, and again, you guys, like I said, you guys can design this any way that you see fit as far as how stringent, you know, the requirement is as far, but it does require the facts upon which the classification is based. Obviously, it would be subject to a hearing. So if the owner of the dog disagrees with the designation, they can appeal that and have a hearing, wherein then, you know, the police department would have to show cause, essentially.
Right. Otherwise, it's he said, she said.
Right.
Okay. Andrew, is there enough work to do here, do you think, with these suggestions that Amber's putting out?
Yeah,
Following the Ohio code makes sense to me.
I think that's definitely the first thing we should be doing, is we should be updating so we match the Ohio revised code, because it seems like that is pretty cut and dry. It definitely does a better job of outlining you know, the different types of or classifications. And then I do like the idea of us being able to take action to kind of contain a dog that may have been involved in you know, an aggressive situation, a potential. I like the fact that we can do that. I would like us to be able to do that, because I think it number one helps mediate the situation, because the dog then is kind of removed, at least temporarily, for the time being. I would like to see some sort of availability, like if we you know, impound the dog, I don't know how else to state that, but you know, they can get their dog back and send it to their own boarding, or you know, until the time of the trial or the court date. So I'd like to see kind of that, send it to their own kennel, because I think that would be a I mean, obviously I don't want to keep somebody's family pet if they, you know, if they don't have to, like, if we don't have to, if they can make other accommodations or send it, you know. But I think we'd have to outline what that would be, because you know, you can't just take it, and we don't want to just take it and you send it over to your, you know, friend's house and, you know, something
I have friends that are that nice to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important, Andrew, like to be able to get that dog out of the situation. I don't know, to your point, what you do with it. Amber, if there's if there's room to temporarily kennel the dog until the owner can get it to a kennel, is that how
We-
that would go?
So I would like there to be two options, I mean, one would be if we needed to impound it, we could do that. And we would have to contract with somebody to do that. We don't, we're not set up at our police station by any means to be
Right.
housing dogs. But the other option, well, I would like to see both options, to be honest, is to say, okay, we're not going to impound it, but you need to take it to a kennel and have it stay there. Either, and this is another question for Mr. Markowitz, probably whether that has to be for a certain defined period or until the adjudication or until the court potentially says, okay, you can go get it. There needs to be some method, especially in situations where you have a dog that's clearly aggressive and clearly attacks every time it gets loose.
Right.
To be able to not just send it back to where it already got out from 3 other times.
Is there
Right.
such a thing as a dog warden or anything like that these days? Like the dog,
So there-
dog catcher?
Some places have dog wardens. There's a county dog warden.
Maybe
But
that's where we start.
So we may have to we may have to look at contacting the Cuyahoga County Dog Warden and see if we can have a contract with them to board a dog that was involved in a situation like this. Because I think that would be one of the, or we're gonna have to look at a private kennel, and I don't know if any's gonna want to take that on. It's gonna be an interesting roadblock there. We can definitely call out to Avon and see what they do. Ask them.
yeah, I put a call into them. Actually, I haven't heard back yet, but I'm going to do some follow-up to see. They have their, from what I can tell on their website, they have their own people that are I don't know if they're officially called dog wardens, but they act in that capacity. But I do plan to get some more information from them on it.
I think we all get how serious this is. I know I talked to a resident who has this problem, and I'm worried about, someone picking up something to arm themselves or try to subdue a dog and hurting somebody else in the process with whatever implement they pick up to try to ward this dog off, Get rid of the gun,
Yeah. Andrew,
So-
Yes.
there's a number of residents that have been indicating they wish to speak to the matter.
Okay.
Competent a bit to that wherever you want them to fit in. I just want you to be aware of that.
So does everybody feel comfortable if we open this up and let the residents speak?
Are you?
Sure,
Yeah,
that's,
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
This is Christy moderating the meeting, and I think comments have come in through the chat, as well as I have a few attendees with their hands raised. I think I'll alternate between the two to be as fair as I can to provide an order. So one at a time, I'll provide an opportunity for those that want to speak. I'll ask that residents, please keep your comments short, as it looks like quite a few people would like to make a comment. And we do have about 30 minutes left on the clock until we need to shut this meeting down to go on with our council meeting. So with that said, I will unmute Charles Bosley. Charles, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. First off, I want to say how much I appreciate the chief of police bringing this matter to the safety committee. I was the last victim here of a dog attack just off of Orchard Road off of Miles. Okay. I just want to put, I mean, I've listened to the dialogue about ordinances 5051, et cetera, and we don't want to, hurt the owner's pets and, et cetera. Let me put some shape and substance to what we're trying to deal with on Orchard Street. Okay. Within the past 24 months, a set of dogs that live on Orchard, okay, have attacked and killed a dog in 2018, attacked and mutilated the dog in 2019, of a resident on Bramley Court, attacked another dog in 2019. Go to trial, no contest, pay the fine, pay the restitution. May 9th, these dogs are off a leash again, harassing a neighbor off, very near Orchard Street. And on June 24th, I was attacked, okay, personally attacked when I was walking 2 dogs next to the water treatment facility, okay? Darren, I think you mentioned you'd hate to see someone carrying weapons. Let me tell you something. I will not walk down Orchard Street without some form of protection. And I can tell you there are residents right now that won't walk down that street without a club, a baseball bat, pepper spray. And for God's sake, this is Cleveland Heights, okay? This is the 5th official complaint the police have received within 24 months. 2 dogs are dead. I was personally attacked, and in absolute fear of my life when not 1 dog attacked me, but 3 dogs acting in a pack attacked me. So please put some shape and substance to this. This is a real blood and guts kind of thing. Vet bills for my sister-in-law are approaching $6,000. Okay, these are loved ones. It's not a fender bender. And talking to the police, they cite, and I think the chief has done an admirable job, basically saying the ordinance don't give any power whatsoever to take these dogs, to put these dogs down. But I got to tell you, there's a real threat on Orchard Street that's in Chagrin Falls, and the people over there are living in terror. That's my, and again, finally, I'm going to pass the mic. It's not if this happens again with these dogs, it's when it happens again. And so far, through the judicial system, these dogs are still free to roam.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I'm going to move on. I'm going through the chat. There are a few comments, although I don't see questions that will require conversation. Just so the attendees also know that all of the comments in the chat are saved for historic purposes. So our committee can go back and review. If your comments aren't read out loud tonight, they will be available for the committee to review. The Ohio leash law covers biting animals. We need something in Chagrin that covers a dog viciously biting another dog, leaving injuries. Look at the photos the police took from our porch, blood everywhere. My 12-year-old daughter told me today that she keeps having nightmares that a dog is going to come back. That's just a comment. Please grant Chagrin Falls Police the authority to kennel a dog that's vicious until the trial. Another resident is voicing that there's a problem here. Another one voicing that they're concerned about hurting people and family pets and that some are vicious. I'm going to, now that I've read a few comments, I'm going to open up the line to the next person waiting, and that was Matt. I'd like to remind everyone we have a little over 20 minutes of the meeting left. Matt,
Okay,
go ahead.
I can keep it short. Yeah, I live across the street from where those 3 Labradors live. I have 2 boys, and I have actually a Rottweiler, a Golden Retriever, and a Rescue. And I don't feel comfortable having my boys out there with those dogs across the street. I worry that something's going to happen. And I actually keep my Rottweiler inside because I don't trust those dogs across the street. They have come over here and tried to attack him, and he's been nothing but nice. And to go to the river, it's not a comfortable environment to live in Chagrin, like everything that Chagrin's about. That's why I moved here 2 years ago, redid a house here, and it's not comfortable to have them here. I think I love Chagrin. I go downtown and it's all dog friendly, and to feel scared to let my kids out and my dogs outside because those dogs might come out. And I actually had to go out there and stop their dogs attacking an old Labrador that was probably, I think, 10 and subdued, and seeing the woman just terrified. It's nothing I want. It's nothing I don't think Chagrin stands for. And it's a little it's a little different. So that's all I have. So we can move on.
Thank you, Matt. Another comment has a three-part question. One, if the language or codes change, does the change apply to previous attacks? Amber, no. Rob, do you want to address that? That's just part one of three. So the answer is no. Okay, number two, is there ever a situation where a dog is euthanized after a vicious attack? Do we have any comments from the committee or police chief on that?
So really, only the court can order a dog to be euthanized. I've not had any experience. We've had where it was a next offense could potentially be euthanized, but I've never actually been involved in any cases where the court has actually done so. They do have the authority to do that. So it's certainly an option, but that wouldn't be something that I, as the police chief, could order. If that's a fear of people's, I would not
Sure.
be in that position.
Okay, the third part to this question is, what can we do to protect our neighborhood and feel safe walking down our street? Question mark. Obviously, that's what we're discussing, so I think that's a rhetorical type of question. Some folks have voiced some concern about Coy Lane, that they have some issues that they can't walk down their street, and a comment that says, Amber and the Chagrin Falls Police have been amazing, so kudos to you. Another question we addressed already, if the ordinance is adopted, is it retroactive? Rob answered, no, it's not. Thank you for taking on the challenge. I've had a problem over the years and I'm one resident who will not walk on Orchard Street. Those were a few comments. Now I will open it up to next in line. I don't know how to say your name.
Is it Dina?
Dina, thank you.
Hi.
Interesting spelling. Thank you very much.
Sorry. And I'm actually here with my husband, Sean, but
Thank you.
the Zoom account is mine, so it's my name.
Okay, you have the floor.
I'm Sean Riley. We lived on Orchard Street for about 3 years. I'm actually a Cleveland Heights police officer for about 10 years now, member of the regionalized SWAT team. I have plenty of language in our city ordinances in Cleveland Heights to deal with these. I'm not going to get too in depth on them now. However, I'd be more than happy to reach out to you guys at a later date and help provide some intel on those. But the one major concern that I have, and the one thing that we have written in our laws, are a vicious dog ordinance, where actually the first offense is a second-degree misdemeanor, and that is if a dog is deemed vicious if it attacks a person and causes physical harm to that person, or if it kills another domesticated animal. So the first offense is going to be a second-degree misdemeanor. Second subsequent offense bumps it up to a first-degree misdemeanor, which then obviously is 6 months in jail and a much higher fine. However, what we have is the ability to impound the dogs at our discretion if something like this does happen. And how we do that is we don't have a dog warden, as I'm pretty sure that actually Cuyahoga County does not have a dog warden that will come out to different villages and different cities. You have to provide that yourself. But we are subcontracted out to Pepperidge Kennels out of Oakwood Village, Ohio. And what they do is they come out, they take the dog, they'll impound the dog, and then the owners actually, they are issued a citation, they must appear in court. Pepperidge Kennels keeps the dog for the duration of the trial. Once the trial is completed, if the judge orders the dog to be euthanized, then Pepperidge Kennels takes care of that. If the judge allows the dog to be released, then the owner actually has to pay for all the fines before they're allowed to get the dog out of Pepperidge Kennels. But those are just a few things that we do in our city. And I've personally been involved in plenty of dog attacks in Chagrin Falls here with the neighbors' dogs. We're actually the neighbors to the people that on Orchard Street that have the vicious dogs. I've personally heard them attack dogs. My wife witnessed them attack our 14-year-old Basset Hound. From a professional level and a personal level, it's unacceptable. I'm a huge fan of the police in Chagrin Falls. I have nothing but the utmost respect for the chief and for all the officers that I've spoken with. But I do feel there needs to be some changes done to the ordinance here. My wife would like to speak for a moment.
And I'll be very, very quick. I think it was Darren, you first asked a question about what are the other options for dog owners whose dogs have been attacked. And yes, our 14-year-old Basset Hound was attacked. I did not bring it to the police's attention. You know, as my husband being a police officer, I understand that police are a finite resource and I try not to disturb them with something like that. And also I take responsibility at that time. My 14-year-old Basset Hound, who basically moves at the pace of a slug with fur, was off his leash. And despite his elderly age and lack of speed, I understand that he should be on a leash. He wasn't at the time of the attack though, so I did not bring it to the police's attention. He did survive that attack though, which I will be eternally grateful for, given the 2 dogs in the neighborhood that have been killed. But Darren, you did ask about civil action.
Yes, we have
options
other
for
residents
an
who
owner
want to
whose dog has
speak
been
and
attacked.
we're on a limited time
I'll be
frame.
so fast. I'll be so fast.
Okay,
The problem is that for certain owners of these attacking dogs, civil action is not a deterrent. They have the money, they will continue to pay, as has been the case with this owner. And the second thing, I know that people are very worried about euthanizing an animal. We love animals, but when you decide not to euthanize a dog who has killed other dogs, you are saying that that dog's life is more important than the dogs that have died. Okay, thank you for giving me that time.
yes.
Before we move on, the officer from Cleveland Heights, could we maybe get together and chat?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I live at 277 Orchard Street. More than happy to speak with anybody about this. Like I said, I have our whole ordinance book at my disposal.
If you could jot down your phone number in the webinar chat, then or you could get a hold of Amber offline through the police department, that'd be great. I'm
Absolutely.
going to move on to the next comment. We have just under 15 minutes left. Someone is referencing a dog that was attacked and that they had to put their dog down, and that the owner of the attacker has 4 dogs now. A question came in through the chat. How quickly can you enact a new policy?
It's going to be a couple of weeks, to be honest. By the time we get it drafted, it comes back to committee and then gets sent to council, and council votes on it. It will be a couple of weeks. So, but we are going to be working on it as fast as possible.
Okay, I think this may be for Chief. Can you address what happens when a dog has a history of multiple attacks, particularly at court, when the family refuses to put the dog down? I don't know. That's part of the discussion going on. I don't know if you have any further comments about that.
I mean, I don't have any necessarily control over what the court does, right? So we,
Yeah.
That's kind of outside the purview of the police department. I mean, we can certainly make requests or recommendations, but ultimately they're the final say on how it's adjudicated. And I'm sure they have sentencing guidelines as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's see. We have, it looks like 4 more people with hands raised and just over 10 minutes. So again, if each person who is being allowed to talk can keep it to, a minute or 2 and give us a chance to respond, then we'll be able to fit everyone in. Debbie, you are unmuted. Debbie had her hand raised, but she's not unmuting. I will go to Kristen.
Oh, hello?
Oh,
Can you hear
yes,
me?
Debbie, thank
I
you.
couldn't figure it out. I'm sorry.
We
Hi,
gotcha.
I'm Debbie Lucas, and I am actually one of the owners of a dog that was attacked by the dogs on Orchard, and Matt, the kind neighbor across the street who spoke earlier, was the one who helped me. I'm the one he was talking about. But I kind of had a comment to Darren. He was talking about the citizens finding other ways to take care of this besides having you know, the police department or the city have something. People may not have the money or the means to do something like that. And I just wanted to say that the police have done a great job. And I think that their hands are tied right now because of your policies or your ordinances. And these dogs are scary. And yes, there are 4 right now. And I am just in fear that they are going to attack a child or a person next. So thank you for listening. And I hope that you guys do change something because something definitely needs to be done.
Thank you, Debbie. Kristen, you are unmuted. Would you like to speak?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I live across the street as well from the dogs. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate you guys holding this meeting. I know this is a big thing that has happened the last few years here in on our street. And, you know, I have a dog, and every time I walk past the house with the other dogs, with the vicious dogs, you know, I have to look and see. I have to do double takes to see if they're there or where they are, or are they gonna come running out? And they haven't even attacked my dog. I can tell you I've lived here for about 3 years, and I have multiple text messages to the owner of those dogs, you know, asking her to get her dogs off my front porch. Hey, your dog's on my front porch. Come get your dog. It has no collar. This was when there were just 2 of them. And before really, I think the attacks, but I now have a gate on my front porch. Not really to keep my dog in, but to keep her dogs out. And I don't want to, you know, I don't want to have to live like that in Chagrin. I'm worried. I don't have children, but I'm worried for Matt's children or for the children on Bramley. When the last attack happened on the dog Scarlet, I witnessed it, and I had reached out to the prosecutor in the case, and I said, what can I do? And he guaranteed me this wouldn't happen again, that the law would take care of it. But it's still happening. And anyways, I just wanted to share my perspective. Thank you.
Thanks.
Kristen, can we get your last name and address for the record?
Sure. Do you want me to put it in the chat?
Oh, that's
That'd be
fine.
great.
Yeah.
I am looking through. Amber, this might be one for you. What extent can one go into protecting themselves in an event of an attack?
So the Ohio Revised Code, and I'm trying to pull it up real quick. There is a provision in the Ohio Revised Code. If you have to take some sort of action to prevent or to protect yourself, you are allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Up to and including killing another dog that's in the act of harming. So I let me be very clear. I'm not advocating that we go out and kill people's dogs. Hold on, let me pull it up. Sorry, I know we're time crunched here.
While she pulls it up, is there anybody else who would like to speak?
I have two other folks, and we have about 6 minutes left. So Donna, I'm gonna allow you to talk.
Yes. My dog, I live on Falls Road, and the dog that lived over on Coy Lane, I believe there's been a total of, I think, 6 attacks, vicious attacks that this dog has been involved in. And my dog was attacked back in 2015, and I took the owners to court. They paid the vet bill. The judge said if there was one more incident in a mauling or an attack, the dog would have to be put down. That did happen. And here we are 5 years later, and the dog is still alive, still attacking. 7 dogs later.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
So I've, not to interrupt, but the Ohio Revised Code section is 955.28, which basically says, you know, if someone is being attacked or a dog is attacking someone else, that it can be, there can be action up to including killing it to stop the attack. That's from the code. Again, I'm not advocating that people try to kill somebody else's dog, but you are allowed to protect yourself from it.
Thank you. Cliff, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is Cliff Andrews, 525 Coy Lane. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to state that our dog was attacked last week on Coy Lane. It follows our across the street neighbors' dogs, 2 of them, which were attacked last month. And as Donna mentioned, the same dog has been responsible for several other attacks going back years. That said, I'd like to thank Amber for her leadership, for bringing this to the Safety Council, for being willing to do something. But I think our example demonstrates that the village needs another tool, because obviously the courts are not getting it done. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. We have another resident, Jean and Tom, and we have about 4 minutes left.
Hi, this is Jean Conley. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Jean and Tom Conley, 549 Coy Lane, just 2 houses down from the Andrews. And I just wanted to reiterate what Donna and Cliff said. So my dog was also attacked in 2016, and I did not report it to the police because I was told by the owner that they had euthanized the dog, which they did not. Then the son went away for 4 years and was back because he lost his job due to COVID. And in the 2 months he's been back, it's attacked 4 dogs. And I guess the only new piece I want to add is the minute this dog gets out, its only goal is to find another dog to kill. He will, as soon as he leaves his house, that's his only goal, is finding another animal to kill. And it takes beating it over the head with a shovel 10 times to get it to back away, even for a second. Its only mission in life is to kill another dog once it gets out. So it's gonna happen again, for sure.
Thank you, Jean. That concludes all of the hands raised from our attendees. And I am looking through comments right now to see if there's anything else to address.
So while you're looking at that, so I guess the recommendations that we're going to make at council are to update 505.01 to meet the Ohio Revised Code, to write an ordinance that gives the police chief or a designated officer the ability to designate a dog as a nuisance, danger, or vicious, giving the police chief the ability to detain or seize or impound a dog until the case has been heard by the court, and being able to give have a way of the police chief or a designated officer to declare a dog a potential nuisance for like we saw in the Avon Lake Code, section 618.22. Does that sound correct?
Amber, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm hearing it from the residents tonight and the ones that have talked to me before this meeting. Is there anything at all that we can do or your department can do prior to us writing this up, having readings on council? That's going to take some time. It sounds like these folks feel like, tomorrow is their concern. And I'm just worried about what they're able to do. And again, my comment about somebody mentioned about God forbid someone should have a gun. I'm worried someone's going to shoot someone else with a gun trying to kill a dog. It's really it sounds like from hearing from these folks tonight, it's a big problem. And I just don't know if we've got any immediate remedy.
So what I can say is that the 2 current situations that we have pending. I'm not gonna speak to details about that because I don't think that I can at this point. But, you know, I've been working with our prosecutor to try to take steps to keep the community safe from the 2 incidents in question. So as of right now, I feel good about that. But again, it is somewhat out of my control in terms of what the court will decide with those 2 cases. And I realize that's not probably the best answer I could give as far as to satisfy people, but what I can say is that I'm doing everything I can to try to keep those 2 communities safe for the time being until those cases are adjudicated.
Thank you. At this time, we need to conclude the meeting. So Andrew, I hope that we did our best to answer questions as they came in from residents. I think we got a general sense of what is out there. If you have any additional questions or comments, Amber, is it okay if they email or call the police department with additional questions and comments?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So if you have your hand raised or you've submitted a chat that we didn't get to, feel free to reach out to the police department to share your thoughts. And Andrew, I'll let you go ahead and conclude the meeting. Thank you.
So in conclusion, I'd like to thank everybody who came and expressed their opinions and their concerns. And I want everybody to know that this is a serious issue and that we are taking it seriously, and we are going to work as fast as we possibly can to remedy this location, or this, sorry, not location, this issue. And I would like to close the meeting. It is 6:59 on July 13th, 2020. Thank you guys for coming. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We got to jump over to the other one.